All right, hello everyone. I am Junchan, and
And
I'm finally showing my face. And I'm doing like
I'm doing like
Kibitz. I'm
Kibitz.
wearing a
I'm
hat.
wearing a hat.
It's
It's
pretty cold
pretty
outside
cold
still.
outside
It was
still. It
minus
was
eight
-8
this week.
this week.
Today is only
Today is
zero,
only
but
0,
still.
but still.
So,
So
streaming tools. So I
So I
thought,
thought,
hey, why
hey,
not
why
do
not
the
do
tools
the
thing?
tools
And
thing? And
checked it out, right? Well, actually, here, that's the setup. I've some lights and like a decent DSLR and like some other camera on top. I'm waiting for another video capture dongle to plug in the GoPro because it's right now it's the DSLR or the GoPro. But it's nice, it's fun. I'm excited to try it out, and I'm excited to be doing video. All right, so that's the setup I have right now. Actually, maybe you saw I do have a whatever that thing is called, plus a green screen, but it's so nice outside. I thought, I let you see a little bit of outside before I project a view of outside, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so what do I have? I have this without my face, right? But with the, yeah. With the screen, then I have this with my face on it. So I guess I'll do this a little bit. And if I look up and I'm pointing at the right thing, so I think that's kind of fun. Anyway, and then I'll put the green screen, and then stream like also right. So what I was doing before things started, I should probably hide the player. Well, first of all, I'm not on my age. Some of you might know. Some of you. I mean, I'm talking to future viewers right now. There's one viewer. Hello, viewer. Some of you might know that I changed my computer a couple of weeks ago. Installed NixOS. Still struggling to get things working properly. But I've got here different setup. I actually used my laptop and still in progress basically, right? I'm something else I haven't said before. I'm also a musician and I have some friends that I play music with, and I'd like to also set this thing up so that actually we can do some small performance. And there's also an aspect of software engineering in the back of that in my head. Want to do something smart with looping, but some structure. So anyway, hey Juan, what's up? Good to see you. Is there? How much infinite June? What? Is that true? That's crazy echo. I suppose that was because the player was playing. Is that right? Hold on. Put the player back. No. Oh, stream lags. No, I think I just saw your. I just saw your message because I don't think this is another computer. I don't have the chatting setup. It's actually a Mac. So anyway, StreamYard may be insane, but I suppose there is echo because my audio is not set up properly. That's the microphone I normally use. Hold on. That's the microphone I normally use, but I don't have it hooked up, as you can see. It is not wireless. And so since I've been shifting my settings, right now I'm actually using some kind of cheap webcam microphone. And check this out. I was completely amazed by the fact that you can actually talk, right? Yeah, the audio mixer filter. I'm going to remove the noise suppression filter. Check this out. That's the normal noise without the noise suppressor. And with the noise suppressor, that's how it gets. After it gets trained a bit, it listens to the noise, and then it's pretty amazing. Anyway, that's in OBS. It's standard. It's really crazy. Oh, is it fixed now? Oh, great, awesome, nice. Awesome. So maybe crazy lag. I wonder why. Maybe it is because I have, so I got my OBS thing. Well, actually, yeah, I'm not using Streamlabs here. I'm using OBS. And hold on. That means what does it mean? It means that I don't have my overlays. I don't have the chat notifications and whatnot. Actually, I was downloading Streamlabs OBS when I decided, hey, how about I just start streaming. Untitled Chapter is back again. Okay. So there's something strange going on. It's exactly right. The echo is back. Is that right? Yeah. Actually, no, maybe I'll keep recording. It's back, you say. What could it be? I don't know exactly what the audio setup is like. Let's look at the advanced audio properties. So in theory, NDI source. That must be it. This should be off. Well, whatever off is. Maybe this. And maybe monitor only as well. How's this? I bet you it's fixed, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so NDI source is because I use a second laptop that has my DSLR plugged in, and I'm playing with this NDI network connection. It's proprietary. I think there's better open source stuff at SRT, but I didn't have the time to try that out. But great, so it's fixed, wonderful. We do streaming tools things, yay! All right, so okay, let's go to this view for now. And yeah, when the sun sets, I mean, it might be a nice sunset. It usually is really nice sunsets here. Yeah, absolutely, experimenting with stuff. What's new? I'm always experimenting with stuff. Sometimes more than other times. Okay, so what do we have? The log. I didn't even prepare the log thingies. I actually downloaded Pretzel as well, so I might start Pretzel because it's nice to have a little bit of music, isn't it? Let's see, where is it? Pretzel. Downloads. Pretzel. And Pretzel. Oh, you might not be able to see that because I'm capturing. Yeah, I'm doing something. I'm doing something different, which is that instead of capturing my screen, I'm actually capturing. I'm tiling my two windows. It's an experiment. I suppose I could also have my screen up, except that's the wrong screen. Let's shift it to the proper screen. Yeah. So that's what I'm really seeing here. Why did I do that? Because I think it's more interesting. But yeah, I have some ideas in the back of my head for that. But hold on, what's going on with Pretzel? Okay, it's here. And I'm gonna have to log in and all that stuff. Pretzel desktop. Oh, doesn't work. Needs to be updated. I see. Oh, Pretzel app. Hold on. That must be it. Wasn't Pretzel desktop. Yeah. Okay. And oh yeah, well, this doesn't show my face anymore, right? Makes sense. Oh, I need to log in with Twitch. So I'm doing it. At least you can't see this. And okay. And then I suppose we'll have to set up. Yeah, so usually my setup is like this, right? I put the sound. Let's check. Seems like it's working. more or less. All right, and the source. So we remove this. Okay, so let's see. Now I need to add an audio source. That might be in settings. Oh, but you can see this. Okay, so let's make another screen view, or a screen view with my face, I suppose. Copy. Paste. Yeah. Okay. And what was I doing? Well, first of all, it's super mind-shattering to have a delay in the headphones while talking. And also, I don't see the chat, so all that is not set up properly. Pure science. Linear algebra doesn't look like normal algebra. Yeah, you were saying something about this. But hold on, let me fix my sound. I think I don't have desktop stuff. Okay, so I'll put desktop here. Audio, and yeah, desktop audio is disabled, and there is no option to enable it. Probably because we're streaming now. Okay, I bet you it's possible to add an audio output capture. Okay, I'm going to do this over there. Create new, okay. Yeah. Device. Oh no. Not possible. Check. Where is spread so straight? Let's see. Audio output device default. Yeah, let's do default. I'm not sure why I can't see the audio capture device here. And it's really, I'm going to remove this from my head because otherwise it's super destabilizing. A good exercise for like a mind-bending thing. It reminds me of this, like one of my boss's boss in my previous company. He had a bicycle which had a handle which if you turn it right, then the wheel will turn left, and if you turn it left, the wheel will turn right. And they were saying how it was a crazy mind-bending experience to try and actually ride the bike, because you completely had to recalibrate all of your motion feedback loops inside your brain, and talking with a little delay, like I don't know, 100 millisecond delay or something, like a 0.1 second delay, that is completely screwing up your brain. So anyway, it's a technical term. All right, device, like a screw, yeah. Okay, let's see. I think it's, yeah, it's not working. So, oh, well, okay, so if I put the sound in the room through the monitor speakers, then I think it will screw up with the noise suppression. So I can't do that either. Do I have another option? I could try audio input capture, but I think that's not gonna work. It's showing stuff, but no, we don't want any of that. Okay. Am I showing the right thing? I think so. You should want to remove, yes. Yeah, I bet it's because it has to be restarted, basically. So I suppose we won't restart it. And we'll just pause the music. What is the music? Put this, move this down. Having the chat, you get an exam in 2 hours. All right, yeah. Oh, that's why you're looking at linear algebra. I get it. Huh. Yeah, so stay focused. Stay focused. Yeah, Pretzel's still playing, so let me make that well. Okay, it shouldn't be playing more, I think. Yeah. All right. And yeah, I suppose. Yeah, well, I suppose you have to study one. What are you doing listening to streams? I mean, I suppose you must have seen the notification and then checked it out and be like, what? Who is this guy? But anyway, study. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to check out, maybe I should set up some kind of notification for the chat on this computer. Is that a correct investment? I don't know. Is there chatty for OS X? You could do it in the jar. For OS other than window, you need to download the jar version. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's an installer. So I suppose we can try. Oh, an installer with an exe file. Okay, so let's download the zip. And what do we have? A jar. Yeah, let's double click it. Cannot be open. Okay. System preferences. Preferences. Hello. Security, privacy. General and open. Yes, please. Yes. Java would like to access from download folder. That's fine. Java, do you think? Oh yeah, it's starting. Starting on my other screen, but it's starting. So then I need to set it up. So it's all good. I'll show you a little bit of the beautiful window view while I configure my account. I'm going to switch account. Okay. Verify. And channel connect. Okay. So let's go back to main. Okay, yeah, that sounds right. Oh no, except maybe not main because I want one with the screen, right? Okay, so I'll go with Stream Deck. Okay. Stream Deck. And you can see that. So I go to screen. There we go. And I'll change my tiled scene to the screen scene. And I'll call it screen. And so now, yeah, my main doesn't have any of the Windows stuff, and the screen does. Okay, so that's good. And I'm going to tile things properly because, you know, we do this here. And yeah, there's still a little bit of a shift in there, but that's fine, right? Is it? Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll do it. It's easy, right? Okay, I can just shift it a bit, right? Just a tiny bit more. And then you'll be perfect, right? Just a tiny bit more. Yeah, look at this. Okay, now the other windows. We're going to do it. The other direction. Hello. Side one, yeah. Yes. Oops. Okay. Okay, almost perfect. I think this is pretty much, it'll be hard for me to see at this distance because my window is not super precise, but I think this is pretty sweet. And so, yeah, I'll show the other windows at this point, and because we want to set up chatting, and that's the wrong one, that's the right one. Okay. We want to set up chatty by doing what? By going in the settings and the notifications and the sound notification settings, and hopefully probably put something in on the monitor. I think that's fine. And then I need to say add a notification such that chat messages will trigger some and trigger a ding, like so. All right, and then we need to do, I think, moderation to, well, yeah, we don't need to do it now because we don't have Petal activated right now, so we're good. Okay, to be honest, I don't even know what we're gonna do. I think we're setting things up a bit, which is nice. I can put this down now. I think it's going to be pinging, and put it like somewhere around here, I suppose, maybe. Yeah, sounds fine. And okay, yeah, now let's check, let's look at my checklist, orient myself a bit. Restarting the router. I don't need to restart the router with this setting because I'm in my living room rather than in my office, and I have everything wired to the router directly. Create a new log file. Yeah, that's what I was about to do. Let's do so. We duplicate the previous one and we look at the date. We're on 13th. Very good. And what do we do next? Streamlabs. We switch to the screen scene. We unmute the mic. We do chatty and Discord. And yeah, I say welcome and I start the music, but we don't do music today, and that's all good. Okay. So we're supposed to do streaming tools things, so let me look in the old streaming tool folder and duplicate this for today so that we can see what we were up to last week. And you know, pick it up from there or do something really different. Okay, also the setup is such that I am not standing, and after only 10 minutes of being seated this way, my knees hurt. So I'm going to have to reorient myself and sit a little bit more cross-legged, which I should have a little bit more habit to do. Okay. And it's slightly less convenient from the keyboard perspective, but it should be fine. Okay, so let's look at the log first, the main one. So here, well, you know what? Actually, I think I don't have this very well updated, so maybe we look at the log streaming first. Okay, so what do we have here? We have this idea of, like, the grand vision was to do a tool which helps take a really long stream and just distill it down to its most juicy, high-value parts for the viewers. And and which is kind of a subset of the summarization problem. For sure, AI and whatnot could play into this, but for now, I'm interested in just the raw workflow, trying to make it as streamlined as possible without necessarily like super advanced AI techniques. So we did have somewhere a PureScript Twitch overlay prototype, which is always fun. I think we display like some SVG drawings on top of Twitch. That was just a way to get started. Yeah, there's this really important idea that's in the back of my mind for a lot of things, which is the metadata streams, where basically it goes together with the idea of potentially streaming multiple audio and video streams, and then not necessarily streaming the text parts as video, but instead stream them as text, and have your browser render like something that looks like VS Code or something that's even better, and then you can decide which Zoom stuff it has, and if it's it's actually an IDE like a VS Code thing, like a runtime environment, then you could run the code, or or write or fork the content, or do things like this potentially all real time, and then that becomes part of the interaction in the stream as well. So metadata stream, outwards, but also inwards, and that's why I'm playing with CRDTs on the Thursdays, even though we've been playing with CRDTs, and the underlying network side of this that I've been looking at is Hyperswarm, right? Because I think it will have a neat path to work in the browser and yet be very efficient and distributed. So the main Hyperswarm protocol uses the UTP protocol, which is a more lightweight protocol, which is than TCP, and that is well adapted to distributed settings. And the browser can't do UTP directly, and so right now there's a kind of an adapter layer with a server-side component which translates WebSockets into UTP, so to connect browser clients to node clients, and browser to browser, I think, can be done through WebSocket. But it still requires some discovery servers. But all of this, I think, is really well thought out and would work in a more public setting as well as a more a non-public setting. And it looks like my camera has frozen. All right, so that means I can go to another view, which hasn't frozen, but it also means that actually my the two views that I've been building are, I'm making a face of being a little bit disgusted. That's not nice. Well, I suppose it's a little bit disgusting that my camera has decided not to function anymore, right? So let me see what's up. And the camera is not the problem. Could be the dongle, because the dongle has shown some lack of resilience. So sometimes unplugging it and replugging it is sufficient. It's actually quite hot, so it's possible that it's been shut down, and we are back. Okay. So I hope I haven't shown my ass or anything. All right. So I'm new to this, new to everything, right? Even though I'm an old fart. Okay. Metadata streams and Hyperswarm. So there's part of me, I love to play with all of this stuff, right? This is super exciting to me. I love it. But let's look at the other stuff that we have in store, because everything's exciting. I've been thinking about the network layer and how the event-driven aspect of that work out. That's something that I'm definitely super interested in looking at. But maybe not now, although I have this second on the to-do list. So separate source and stream recordings, right? So this, I've actually played with that, I think, since last time, because I realized that there is a function called selective recording in OBS, in Streamlabs OBS, which actually I suppose I could show because I have at least downloaded it. So let's install it and check it out for Mac, because I actually don't remember if I've tried it for Mac. I think it's yeah, it definitely didn't used to exist, but now it does. Okay. And Streamlabs. What? Get the tab thing for this. I'm still copying. Okay. Oh, I think I've reversed this to screen and main. Oh, maybe not. I suppose I should call main tiled. That would be an easier way for me to remember. Okay, and so where are we? The Streamlabs, we're waiting for it to be copied, and it is copied. Start it up. Properly signed, right? Yeah. And it's asking for some permissions. Sure. Camera, have it. And I suppose I could do the connection thing on another screen. So that works out reasonably well, I suppose. And right. And we want to start fresh because we have an overlay file. And yeah, it's ready to see things. Oh, there's visual presets, huh? Oh. Oh. That's more like ghost town. Okay, very short. Why not? Action movie? What? Earth. Okay, some warmth, I suppose. Winter green, some lack of warmth. Cell shade. Oh wow, that's pretty. That's quite pretty. Hold on, can I? Oh, it's actually hard for me to see on my top monitor. But wow, yeah, that is super pretty. Love it. Oh, okay, yeah, let's have that. The theme, sure, that looks good actually. Kind of like that. Oh, probably at night, right? That's right. Why does it say skip? Because I have to buy it. Geometric magnets. Okay. Yeah, my bandwidth should be pretty kick-ass. Connected directly to the router. Pretty good downstream, right? And we should get, yeah, 50 mega. Okay. Yeah, and then I do want to import my. I was trying to do this actually before the stream, and then I realized I'm never going to be able to do this in time, especially since I spent some time setting up OBS Studio. So I just thought I'd just start streaming. And yeah, so it should be possible for me to import the overlay file through scene collection and import overlay file. And I get an overlay file that I built from my Windows machine, but I think it's going to work just fine from here. And it should have also the video assets in it. And then maybe I can import the Streamlabs OBS settings to OBS. I don't know. Because I think what we saw last time is that when we tried the NDI linking, I think, well, it was clear that we couldn't export from Streamlabs OBS, but maybe we could import. We shall see. Ah, there you go, my good old friend, the particle thing that I want to recreate in GPU one day. Okay, move. Feed. Can I move somewhere? No, I want to. Yeah, that's the way. Okay. Right. Yeah, that's better. Oh, that's not great, but whatever. So yeah, let me see if I can import the NDI source from here. But what I wanted to show was the selective recording, and that works fine. And it's not as advanced as maybe I would like in terms of doing multiple video streams and so on. And maybe also recording each of these different facets as independent video tracks. It's not going to do that, right? It's just going to stream some stuff and or decide things that go on stream and things that go on recording or things that go on both, which is a great first. I mean, it's probably fine for a lot of use cases. Hey, you can actually do NDI source. So I could, yeah, that means that actually my webcam, DSLR setup with the USB capture dongle works just fine. So that's good. That's really good. So I should be able to shift all this to a better setup next. To screen. Yeah. Okay. Enough with my face. So separate sources. Well, selective recording, we've checked it out, but let's say that it's not exactly what we would like. So sending separate video streams and then video coding. Right. Let me backtrack just a tiny bit because this is an idea that I got started on in the last streaming tool after wanting to stream games again and realizing that and giving a shot at this idea of streaming for 3 hours and then or 2 hours and then taking 20-minute chunks and have those as those published in as YouTube videos. And as I was doing this, I realized that I'd seen some streamers that actually seem to be doing their videos in a stretch, and whether that's on a Twitch stream or not, actually is not necessarily relevant, but they can just insert little breaks inside a long stream, which sort of properly parenthesizes the little 20-minute or so episode. and again and again. And then if you have an automated process that's able to put an intro and an outro, and then maybe also allow you to do little voiceover on top, then you can really streamline the process and get this higher quality episodes on YouTube from a Twitch stream. So that's kind of the process here. And obviously what I realized is that this is a simpler problem to tackle than the problem of trying to do the same thing for a coding stream, a software programming stream, because the software programming stream, I mean, it's possible probably to do 20 minutes breaks as well, but yeah, I think inherently you're going to have moments which are more about trying to find a solution, maybe kind of not making progress, and that those will ideally you want to compress those. And then so yeah, the shape of the tools and the workflow that's needed to do the same thing for coding streams, I think will be a step more demanding. And so therefore it seems that doing it for gaming, that's a slightly simpler issue, but we'll probably build a foundation that we can use to then do the more complicated thing. So right, so that's why the video cutting and appending and templates, that was something that I was looking at. And then specifically I was thinking it would make sense to do this by scripting GStreamer somehow. So that would be sort of the I was thinking of it as maybe being a lower hanging fruit, because the higher hanging fruit is to basically use some of the framework that have been built on top of GStreamer, and specifically GNonlin and this thing called GES, I think for GStreamer editor services, which are meant to, in fact, do that thing that I'm really interested in and I've been talking about in previous streams, which is to have GStreamer, well, basically to mix the streaming paradigm, which GStreamer really is about, with the nonlinear editing, like more timeline paradigm. And so I'm really super curious about this, and I do want to explore it. So that's something that is also super exciting that I really like to try. And something that I should add here about the metadata stream is that there is also like a smaller sub-project that's also a little bit connected to the Twitch overlay, which is just a streamer overlay, which I think is a superset of a teleprompter, or and I'm going to write it here like a tab player, because I realized that that's something that I find myself doing quite a bit. I open up a video with well, mostly from okay, I'll explain this, from Cover Solutions, which is this YouTuber that takes bass tracks and lowers the bass in the track, and then performs those together with tablature that's actually scrolling by. And what's going on? Ah, there you go. So that's an example of it, right? And so that's really awesome. And sometimes what I like to do is actually, because I want to hear the original bass better, or there exists a track or a video somewhere where someone's done the effort of actually indeed taking the track and removing the bass. In some cases, even the bands put out the recordings without the bass. And then it's really nice to be able to follow the tablature playing together with an instrumental that doesn't have the bass, because then you're kind of the bass player for the band, right? And that's really pleasing. It's like karaoke, right? So this idea of, and to me, this is metadata, right? The tablature. And it's actually a format. And in fact, Cover Solution, it publishes the guitar, the tablature that he transcribes as Guitar Pro files. And there are Guitar Pro file parsers available in various languages. And so these, you could take the Guitar Pro file, put it in there, and then have it display in your teleprompter, and like play for you guys if I muster the courage to do that one day, or play for my friends by plugging in OBS with a virtual camera and doing like some kind of a Zoom meeting or something like that, right? In Corona times, it's interesting to think about how to do some of these more entertainment-related things and social, sharing the pleasure of music in distributed ways. And it's the problem of being able to play together at the same time. Through the internet, it's really not there. You really need like super high performance fiber, and it wouldn't even work. You'd still feel the latency if it was like over a continent, right? So it needs to be in the same continent, and then you need super high-end hardware in order to be able to not feel that there's a little bit of a lag with someone playing at the same time as you are. But there's fun things I think that I have in the back of my mind that could be experimented with looping specifically. And I've been playing with live loopers and how to basically, play, do a loop, and then change instrument, do another loop, and then with my friend, she would sing on top and do loops, and we're looping, and it's like kind of jam-like, right? And I think that if you do that, then you can send the loops out there, and then they will play in sync at the next go around, and then you can receive what the people did back. And so it's still quite a lot. Obviously you're not going to have the super high bandwidth of being like locked in the band together and like really feeling it, but probably the next best thing possible that I haven't seen around. So anyway, that's an idea, and that's why I'm talking about tab player here, the big digression, but also just as a prompter, for instance, my checklist, that could be, this one, the streaming checklist. That's typically the type of thing that I can see as being displayed, in fact, right in a screen that's right in front of me, where I can look at the screen and it's hard for you to say that I'm actually looking slightly below. You can tell, right? Because as animals, we've evolved like an ability to tell whether someone's looking at us or not. Like it's super highly advanced capability of our brain to analyze this. So you can tell. And actually my screen is slightly lower than I would like. Yeah, I moved it before the stream. It should be a little bit higher, and then it'll be even harder. But then I'd have some prompts here, and basically visual feedback. I could have some of the alerts around streaming. Oh, my MacBook has gone to sleep for some reason. I'm going to wake it up. All right. So yeah, I could have some of these checklists basically. So I'm thinking about this kind of streamer overlay and the design principle of it. And I'm thinking about going from sort of a bit like an old school teleprompter, of the kind that, in fact, back in the days. So I get the mouse right in front of my nose. It looks like I have a fly on my nose over there. It's not pleasant. Like the old teleprompter in the early days of television, they were actually scrolling transparent film, well, they didn't need to be transparent, but scrolling film, they might have been transparent for it to be backlit, maybe. I don't know why I have it transparent in my mind. Yeah, there would be an operator that's actually listening to what the presenter is saying and making sure that he keeps synced to what the person is saying. Obviously, these days it's digital. You can actually, I think, because of the advances in speech recognition, I'm pretty sure AIs can do a really decent job of actually identifying timing for an existing text. Actually, I had done some research on that. There's some, it even has a name. Is it alignment? Maybe it's alignment. Speech alignment, I think. To basically, you have a speaker, the speaker is saying a given text, and then you know exactly where the speaker is in a given text. So all of that stuff would be super interesting to have as technology for a prompter, and just generally as a kind of feedback loop. Because right now, the feedback loop, I have the Stream Deck, and it's pretty neat, right? And it has, it does have buttons and whatnot, and maybe I should show it to you. It does have, buttons and. Oh no! Okay, I made a. I shouldn't have pulled. There was some liquid there. I will be right back, and there's more liquid there. Oh wow, amazing! And I do it on stream. That's fantastic. Oh boy. Okay. All right. No electronics were harmed during this exercise. Then I guess it's a reminder that I need to refill on liquids. But I still have some, so I'll do this now. Okay. So yeah, Stream Deck is nice and pretty. But not in your face, right? And especially with this kind of setting, if I had it over there, I couldn't touch it. So there's some needs, and obviously, if TV has evolved this way of having something close to the camera, it's obviously useful for the viewer to not feel like distracted because someone is always looking on the side or something, or down. And it's also an area which is close to the area of focus, and it's close to where my screen is as well. So it makes total sense for alert kind of things, or things that I want to read if they're a little bit more scripted, like for instance, between episodes or whatnot. So I've been trying to think, so there's prior art for this, and the one that I was looking at is QLab. Not that, QLab. Which is a sound, video, and lighting control tool that's used professionally by stage managers and production designers and managers for things like plays and dance shows and basically, yes, stage arts. And they had this thing called QLab Remote, and something like this, for instance, strikes me as particularly relevant. Like, I like the fact that this has groupings. Oh, yeah, need to switch back. There we go. Yeah, I like the fact that this has groupings here, and what feels like a time progression, and actually, I don't exactly know what these things mean, but I think so. These numbers, they seem like they represent sub-scenes. The fact that there's audio and video and light, I would have imagined that these would not be underneath each other, though. But it's this concept of a cue list. And yeah, usually you see this very unpretty, actually. but I suppose I want to kind of take a look at what's the current evolution of this. But yeah, the moment that you show it, I suppose that you are sort of giving away your IP. But it is what it is. I see. Yeah. So to me, I mean, yeah, right. I suppose that for professional, they need a lot of details, but it seems like it's a little bit small for to see something here. First look. Okay. It's a web-based tool. Okay. Right. Ah, that's nice. So it's kind of like it has some preset template graphical elements, and then it just overlays them in a kind of a free-flowing manner on top of the text, which is great because I suppose that like a score in music, like the script for play, is really what everyone is going to be referring back to. It's sort of the main interface between all of the the actors, the director, the light people, the music people, everyone is actually following that same thread. So annotating that makes kind of a lot of sense, and it fits my sort of abstract view of this, which is sort of time moving from top to bottom, which is similar concept here, and then the possibility, and especially in it's something that's not completely scripted, right? That the possibility to see where you are. So that's sort of a bracket in a that's something that brackets a segment, or yeah, potentially more a line, right? A geometric terms, infinite line going from the past to the future, and there's a segment that's extracted from that is whatever is relevant to the moment, and so that can be some text to say, that can be some alert showing up, and then you still have access at the maybe in sort of a fading terms. You still have access at the top to something that's the past, so that you can refer back to what happened before, and then you also see what's coming up, so that you can sort of prepare if you need to. And that can be timers, like when are you 20 minutes for your YouTube video are going to expire, or it could be that you're making some choice in some direction that is available to you if something's a little bit less scripted. And so that's a bit more fuzzy in my head, but I suppose it's the idea, like for instance right now, right, I'm looking at this log, this streaming tools, something that's been done last week, and I haven't decided yet what exactly I'm going to dive into, right? I kind of unscripted, not scripted manner, I decided to dive into this streamer overlay teleprompter part of things, right? Coming back to the metadata stream. And but I've also talked quite a bit about selective recording, and I went into that. So there's a pathway here, right? And if you think about it, I'm trying to think also about this in terms of indexing and in terms of educational practice in some sense, because in a scripted class, for instance, you have a set of very clearly broken down topics and sections that are supposed to sort of, in the best case scenario, build on top of each other and then lead you to some learning objective where at the end, hopefully, you're able to reason better about something, but hopefully you also have maybe some practical skills about it. You're able to maybe mobilize this knowledge, talk about it, or you're even able to put the knowledge directly into action, into practice. So those are the best, right? When you're able to do all of these things through some educational process. But the scripted part, I think, and the rigidity of it is a turnoff for what basically can show up in an interaction, a teaching interaction, where you're able to follow passion. You're able to follow the interests of your students, or the people that you engage with in conversation. Then that feels so much better, right? When this happens, then that's when you can get excited. You can get excited together, and that to me is the juice that goes into actually becoming better at something. If you don't have that, then there's something missing. And so I like to explore this. Spaces in between scripted and unscripted. And I find that one of the shapes that emerges for me in terms of scripted and unscripted is the fact that usually there is a kind of a potentially top-down breakdown of a particular topic. In fact, I would say that there are 7 top-down breakdowns. As one of my wise teachers said to me one day, a pyramid with many summits, or triangles with many vertices. So many ways to break down something, and but it's quite organic or inspired, I would even dare to say, to be able to move through these in a way that's actually able to ride the interest of your audience. And so that might mean that you might skip some prerequisites at some point, and you might go deep into something without even having looked at the prerequisite. But that's fine. Then you kind of need to earmark that prerequisite and maybe go back to it later, right? And so that's where, like, to me, unscripted and scripted meets is that I think what gives you the freedom, and I think that's the same thing in music, what gives you the freedom to improvise is the structure of scale, chord progressions, or cultural setting in music or whatever, and to be able to move inside that, to move inside that, moved by what? Moved by, well, emotion, inspiration, interaction, life, juice, love, stuff. So yeah, so it's the meeting of squares or triangles and circles or something like that, right? So, and I think that when I'm thinking about this overlay, this direct response to basically a performer, right? Like, if I say that I'm performing right now in some way, I'm improvising, I have this loose script, I don't know what I'm going to talk about based on this script exactly. I'm trying to follow my own interests because right now there's not necessarily huge amounts of interaction, right? There's in the back of my mind all of the streams that I've done before, me getting progressively maybe more open about the stuff that I talk about that come from what I've been thinking about for the past few years. And all of this is guiding me, and the moment, the thing that excited me yesterday about setting up this setting and this better lit studio, and this way to share some of my my life environment, and all of this is writing, I think, is more interesting and makes for more compelling content. Who knows? Maybe we shall see. Because I have passion in it, right? It's not just a to-do list. It's stuff that, you know, I have curiosity about, I have interest about, I'm excited about, and also deeper than that, they actually all have some kind of purpose in the back of my mind as well. So how do you maintain that? And what is the simplest interface that you give to someone who wants to write something, wants to write the moment like that, wants to explore some setting and maybe doing in a way that is shared? What is the minimum kind of streamer overlay? What is the performer kind of feedback monitor, or like for a musician, it's the returns on stage, right? The monitors that where you ask the sound engineer to do a mix that is just right what you need. Like if you're the bass player, for instance, you need to hear that kick bass, that kick drum pretty well, and you know. So all of these things, they're part of the direct feedback that you get while you're supposed to let go of the setting, let go of the scales and the chord progression, and just express yourself, right? And so for that, I think, you know, a good teacher, especially when they're focused on one particular topic, then they build this over 5 years, 10 years of experience, that they become really good at, you know, keeping all in their head about the, you know, that breakdown structure that I was talking about. They have those many ways to break down their topic, and they know it, and so they know that they miss the prerequisites if they follow a student question, and they will still write the, you know, the interest and the motivation in order to enhance and increase the juice and the passion in the conversation. But they will also, by their experience, by the fact that, you know, they think and breathe about this topic every day, they will, and they've done this class, you know, 5 times with many students before, they'll know what, you know, what they can maybe also be like, you know, this prerequisite, it looks like we can skip it, or at least, you know, I can. It's in the handouts, so it's okay if we don't speak about them directly. But in today's world, I feel that we are hard pressed to have anything of import. We're really hard pressed to maintain these structures for everything that matters. And so if we want to take some risks in thinking bigger, integrating different topics in order to tackle this highly interconnected, complex world, then I think we need supports that help us kind of follow. And our mind is the best way that, you know, we do this instinctively and naturally. But I think in some cases, it's really useful to have computer support and some digital knowledge management support from the tools. And it depends on what you're doing, right? For music, it's going to be a different type of feedback that you need. For thinking through a problem or thinking through large issues, then you're going to need to kind of different anchoring and feedback. And to do something like live coding, you're going to also need some different feedback. But I think there are probably some user experience and user interface and information architecture principles that at least I feel like I've been circling around, I've been coming back to, and I think at least they would fit my way of processing information, for instance. And so I want to sort of try and play with this a bit and think about this streamer overlay concept, because that's something that comes back over and over again. And that, as I was saying, the Stream Deck is not sufficient to give. I'm thinking, like, I'm looking at my my monitor, and it looks like this view is a bit screwed up for some reason. Yeah, it is. How come? What happened to you, View? You were fine before. Okay, I'll just switch you to screen again. There you go. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the screen, and I'm really passionate about this overlay thing, and I feel like the fact that it connects to hyperswarms and that it connects to also something I've been talking about on Thursday, which is this how to match a kind of a streaming paradigm with an event-driven paradigm, which is something that, yeah, I'm really excited about and I want to learn about more, especially in a functional programming context. So this is very appealing because then it's all about this, it's all about event synchronization and whatnot. It's all about manipulation of time, these brackets of time and what comes next, but and not necessarily in a rigid manner, but in a way that's more open to navigate. So it's manipulating time. So that's the kind of magic that I'm excited about. So at the same time, at the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, but you know, last time you were thinking about this more concrete thing, which was to maybe do a prototype to script GStreamer in order to use these moments in the stream and to then package the stream up, right? So that's more, I suppose you could break these down more into, okay, let's try and do some abstract categorization here. There's something that is about the moment of performance itself. And if we do that, then we go for the overlay. And then there's something that's about the production of, I would say, artifacts. And if we do that, then I suppose that then we're looking at sort of NLEs, or like nonlinear editing. And so there we go into the path of GStreamer and nonlinear editing aspects. And of course, in the moment of performance, the overlay, all of this will feed into some of the stuff that I wrote here, like video processing and machine learning and face tracking and natural language processing. Because with a setup like this, what I'd like, for instance, is I'd like to not even have to touch the stream deck. I like to be able to, just by my gaze and doing gaze tracking, to be able to allow the, basically, I guess what you would call the machine producer to make decision by itself about what camera it's going to switch to based on some heuristics, like, you know, don't put like 5 cuts in the same 5 seconds, right? Like, but sure, put 2 or 3, maybe that adds some rhythm, and then stay with 1. And anyway, there's some rules for producing things in different styles as well that could be, I think, written in some kind of scripting language. And so, yeah, the scripting language is something that underlays this a little bit, but I will leave this aside for now. Okay. So yes, there's all of the sending the separate video stream. The moment we start plugging on top of something like GStreamer, all of this exists. Like, we already have all of the capture drivers for the world, basically, including synchronization primitives for things like MIDI time code. And we also have access to machine learning if we get there. So really what we mean here by NLE, we really mean GES, right? Which, does it mean GStreamer GES, yeah, GStreamer editing services. Yeah. Yeah, with this element of timeline, which is perfect. So really want to try that as well. So there is an argument that in fact, maybe I want to morph this into my PureScript stream, because that's actually, because I actually want this to be in the browser. Whereas this, I could merge into my Haskell stream, because I don't want this to be in the browser. I want this to be native, running fast, because this is about moving stuff. Plus, I mean, there is a GStreamer interface for Haskell, so that would work. But you know, I wouldn't necessarily want to do all of the video processing in Haskell, because Haskell is not necessarily performant enough for that. And so it could do some stream processing, but probably not of the kind. And plus, you have to deal with all of the edges, right? You need the driver for this obscure capture thing and for this particular video format, and that would take forever, because there's not a huge ecosystem of video processing in Haskell. So using GStreamer, which has, I think, really solid, really solid foundation code-wise, and performance, and attention to performance, and is keeping abreast of the latest hardware development, but instead building a Haskell library on top that actually instantiates the pipeline based on some higher level description of the pipelines. That's maybe cleaner than the GStreamer one, or hides away some of the complexity that are in the GStreamer, especially for some of our purpose, because GStreamer needs to be super broad in terms of the other use cases that it caters to, but we don't need that all of these details necessarily, so we can hide them. We'll make some choices. Plus, that corresponds to playing with things like Junai and Rhine. So then you would say, but what will happen to the chronofold thing? Well, I think chronofold are an integral part of what I see as technology that's used potentially for overlays. Because those overlays, what's to say that they can't be collaboratively edited on the spot? Like that would make for fun improv theater, like Whose Line Is It Anyway on stream, like with people writing scripts for casts as they're performing online. Wouldn't that be awesome? So I think this would need to happen in the browser. This makes it like the most widely available and accessible. Okay, let's continue. This is an interesting thought, right? And then if we look at the log, then my Haskell stuff, obviously, and body example. Well, yeah, production. It's interesting, huh? Because there's production of artifacts. There's also the real-time production of artifacts, right? You could look at the n-body simulation idea as producing like fancy visualization that use GPUs well, and I'm interested in that because I'd like to, for instance, be able to switch to this view, and then on a green screen, being able to have some stuff that's important that I want to highlight, so that you have something on screen like in a presentation that anchors your mind while I speak, and that it makes it easier to follow. You're like, what is he going on about already? I mean, I speak in super dense ways in general, and also sometimes refer to things that might be obscure to a lot of people. So So having these anchors will be useful. They can be anchors that also, they can be diagrammatic anchors, and then they can also be streamed as metadata, right? They can be made available, and then those anchors then, if for instance they represent a concept that is insufficiently explained for anybody, then that can be part of the feedback, and I can go back to it real time. So production of artifacts is also, it's not just, there's still something there about things that happen in real time and things that happen afterwards. And so it makes sense to separate them because there's another thought here, which is this idea that I think I have a little drawing of the post-it. Let me grab it. So here's a typical thing that I would like to see floating there as an overlay, right? And maybe just because I take a snap of the picture and then I can recall it, right? Because I've indexed it properly. So also without the fact that this camera has like really precise focus, and so if I put it here, it's kind of slightly out of focus, right? But if I put it here, then it's a little bit too small. So yeah, so here the idea is that you have multiple streams and multiple moments in stream that can be reassembled into final products, so to speak, and then maybe in order to make them more polished, then you need to sort of iron out the merge points, the soldering, the joints of it, and that those can then be reassembled into this kind of work breakdown structure that I was mentioning before, meaning that they can be made into a more step-by-step hierarchical course structure. And it's actually useful because then indeed, like the same way that I was saying earlier, you can have those, you can find out that you missed some important prerequisite. And even better than this, you can actually, you can evolve the structure of the course also based on your audience's needs. Which is to say that there are several such work breakdown structures or knowledge breakdown structures. So this is related to this idea that the products, calling them products, maybe knowledge, I mean, they are frozen in the way that the real-time thing is not. Book. In Taoism, apparently, they call, and maybe it's even broader in Chinese culture, but the idea of an ideogram is knotted qi or knotted energy, and knotted as in tide. So it's not free-flowing energy like speaking is, but it's indeed it's knotted and maybe attached to something. And I love this. I love this metaphor. I think it's beautiful. And I think this is the two facets I'm talking about here. There's stuff that's produced real time, and that may entail GPU and like fancy visualization that appear where they're supposed to appear and whatnot, including in the making decisions about which scene to show and whatnot. So what we call the machine director, I think. And then there are things that are for after. They are more artifacty, right? So maybe calling it artifact is actually the better way. It's a result. It's some kind of an outcome. It's a product, I guess. Yeah. And why am I waxing lyrical on this? Because it might help to restructure what my open workbench has on it by focusing it. And it's good because I have 3 slots, and those look like 3 slots. And this looks like the PureScript slot, this looks like the Haskell slot, and now this starts to look like the streaming slot, and that then helps me decide what I should look at now. I should not look at the overlay because the overlay is super cool, but the overlay is PureScript. I should look at what I have open right here. I should look at the production of artifacts and how to, because here GPU and the machine director, that's going to be GStreamer. But I'm going to want to plug this into GES if I want to produce outcomes with that then fit on the timeline somehow that are that have a beginning and an end, and are meant to be about something specific rather than just be about, you don't know what's going to be next because you're kind of designing it on the fly like I'm doing. Okay, I kind of like that. So I'll take a break and I'll actually, what time is it? Yeah, I'll take a break and I'll come back and I might actually stop the stream. No, I won't stop the stream. I don't want to stop the stream. I'll just leave you with this view, and I'll go and maybe I'll mute the microphone, and I'll be right back. I'm warm enough, I don't need my hat, and this is delicious juice. That's what I was saying. Anyway. Okay, so screen. Let's check out GNonLin because I don't know how it's supposed to work, and I'm super curious about this and super excited to learn about it. So let's definitely learn. Okay. Libraries simplify the creation of multimedia editing applications. Based on the GStreamer multimedia framework and the GNonLin set of plugins called to suit all types of editing-related applications. GStreamer editing services are cross-platform and work on most Unix-like platform as well as Windows. It is released under the GNU General Public License. Library General Public License. Goals of GStreamer editing service. Set of plugin, decoding and encoding to variety of format. Easily choosing segments of streams and arranging them through time through the GNonLin set of plugins. I like that. That sounds like time magic to me. That's what I'm interested in. But all those building blocks only offer stream level access, which results in developers who want to write nonlinear editors to write a consequent amount of code to get to the level of nonlinear editing notions, which are closer and more meaningful for the end user and therefore the application. Oh, okay. The GStreamer editing services, hereafter GES, aims to fill the gap between GStreamer, GNonLin, and the application developer by offering a series of classes to simplify the creation of many kinds of editing-related applications. Okay, so the intro was, this is what GStreamer and GNonLin allow. GStreamer plugins allow to decode and encode to variety of formats. GNonLin allows to choose segments of streams and arrange them through time, but it's missing an abstraction to actually handle this properly. Okay, it sounds to me though that before getting there, then it means that I want to learn a little bit more about GNonLin. So, I mean, it could be that it's easier to start with GES, but I think I want to learn just a little bit more about GNonLin and get a sense what government for what it is. So yeah, this stuff I think is out of date. This should be fun. Okay, let's do it. Set of plugins for GStreamer. Browse Git. Well, I suppose we can browse Git. Oh, okay. We're going to do this on my other screen. Hold on. This is not. Yeah, this is not the main GitLab instance. This is the big GitLab. It's the free desktop GitLab instance. So hold on, can't we just go in it without? Yeah, we should be able to explore, right? And GNonLin. I think we did this last time, but this is another computer. Doesn't show up here. How about here? GStreamer, yeah, it should be now part of GStreamer editing services. I think it's been moved inside this code base. Plugins, NLE. Tools. Okay, let's look at the other plugin folder, GES. Huh. Okay. Let's actually look at the CI file. It's just a template. docs, plugins. Empty file. Oof. And maybe just a short description. Yeah, that's not great. Okay, well, I suppose it means that we actually. No. I want to find out more about it. I'm going to be a little bit stubborn here. Okay, what about this? 130. Okay. Generic elements. Okay. So there's just a base class and 4 elements. Composition, source, URI, and operation. These look like fairly standard GST elements. Properties. Active. Indicates whether this object should be used by its container. Okay. A container would be a general composition. I see. A composition is interesting. Okay, let's look at what a composition is. General composition contains general objects such as general sources and general operations and connects them dynamically to create a composition timeline. Oh, that's interesting because it means that there's another graph, sort of. I mean, actually, maybe GNL objects are, or GNL compositions. Oh, I think, I'm just thinking about the fact that GStreamer itself is usually about composing GST elements together to do a pipeline. Like, for instance, camera enters it. Like, exactly, OBS could be described as a GStreamer application, for instance, right? You have sources, you apply filters, you composite them with specific sizes, and then you output them through a recording feed and maybe a streaming feed. So all that would be a typical GStreamer pipeline. Usually it's meant to be operating live. So no, that's not exactly true, actually. It's not meant to be operating live. It's optimized such that it can operate live. But then any source can be a non-live source. It can be just a file. And then you can just basically actually do the same thing. Yeah. So now I'm thinking, okay, a composition contains general objects and general sources and general operation and connects them dynamically. So that sounds like that's another layer of graph-like things, but that's not exactly. So maybe it's something that's more coerced than what a GStreamer pipeline is, which can be pretty much anything. So maybe this. So we need to look at the operations. I surmise that general sources must be the end of a GStreamer pipeline. So they must be fairly similar to a GStreamer element. So let's take a look at this. General source. General source encapsulates a pipeline which produces data for processing in a general composition. Exactly. So a whole pipeline can be a source, which is perfect. And since a pipeline can be a single element, then a source can be also a single element. That's fine. But that's awesome that it can be a pipeline. Very good. And then if we look at what operations are, then that's going to tell us a lot. It has 6. A general operation performs a transformation or mixing operation on the data from one or more general sources, which is used to implement filter or effects. Okay, so it's just a sync. So again, that means that we can reuse any GST existing plugin for that, which is fine. So I suppose the composition is going to be what says, it's going to be the timeline aspect of that says something like, okay, this source is going to have this filter with this parameter moving in this way, something like that. Let's look at composition. We have composition here. Yeah. Okay, GST contains GNL objects such as GNL sources and GNL operations and connect them dynamically. Yeah. Element path, name source. It only has the source. Update G Boolean, signal commit, and detailed GNL composition. I mean, that goes into what looks like. Okay, hold on. Commit, signal takes a composition, something about Boolean. Whether to commit recursively, okay. Implements GST child proxy. Okay, hold on. So GNL composition combines GNL object, but yeah, it's not clear. Commit some stuff. User data set when the signal handler was connected. User data set when the signal handler was connected, which is true if changes have been committed, false if nothing's been committed. So is that basically a way to specify that something happens at a specific time, and then in this framework you don't have it's completely agnostic in terms of what's going to commit, whereas in the GES then you have a timeline thing which is going to commit. I don't know, I'm guessing. Okay, let's look at what this GST proxy thingy is supposed to be, child proxy that we implement. But that's just a standard GST thing. Interface abstract handling a property set for elements with children. Yeah, okay. So, which is why there's some recursion ability. Okay, so you're basically building a node of processing, and then through commits, you make them advance in time. Okay, that's my guess. Is there any way we could learn more about this? It doesn't seem like so. How about this? Media duration endpoint, media start position in nanoseconds, also endpoint in video editing. This corresponds to what position in the contained object we should start outputting from. Right, because a GNL object is basically a wrapper around a pipeline. This is what gets most of the properties there. And the fact that it's been delegated to an interface that basically everybody implements, including composition, right? Yeah. Means that you can create a hierarchical graph of those things that each have the same interface, and it looks like my movement has blocked the camera. That's funny. Okay. let's try and fix that. Oh, but you know what? I just see that the camera has its power disconnected. That's not good. Let's reconnect it. Okay. It seems to be reconnected, but however, not everywhere. Ah, there we go. We're back. Yeah, so the fact that each node in that tree of sources, filters, operations, all have this GNL object interface plus a way to commit to them recursively, and possibly, I imagine, also to specify which element you commit to in the tree, mean that they all share this GNL object interface, which is all about when things start, when things end, and so on. And so then you're able to use that language to say, okay, this filter starts here, and then this container starts there, and you might not be able to, I mean, I don't know if you're able to dynamically change the structure of the tree as you move forward, but probably you can. And then you're also able to dynamically change the parameters of the nodes and the branches and operations and so on. And so this whole, whether something is active or not, how long something will last. Caps is a super standard thing in GStreamer. It defines things like formats, and it helps determine also which way different elements of a pipeline are going to negotiate their interface, how they're going to talk to each other, whether they're going to need to create a buffer, how they're going to synchronize, how often, all that stuff. Duration, I love that it's in nanoseconds. Media duration can be negative. Endpoint, media stop. Media, that's interesting. Endpoint as opposed to media stop. But endpoint is read write. Right. So yeah, an endpoint, I suppose. Oh, default value is nice. I suppose this is some power of 2. Media stop is the same power of 2. Priority of the object and container. Highest priority is 0, meaning this object will be selected over any other between start and stop. Between start and stop. I'm not sure what that means. Object whose priority is -1 will be considered as default object in the GNL composition, and the start-stop value will be modified as to fit the whole duration of the composition. Okay, so I can imagine like things like backgrounds and whatnot there. Yeah. So that's a way, that's a way of, because I suppose that's maybe if you have a super large tree structure, then some operation needs to be dropped at a particular frame. Well, it looks like get stuck again. What's that? Why do you get stuck? Because you're overheating, I think. No? A bit fiddly, huh? Quite fiddly. Okay. Working again. It's actually getting a bit dark, isn't it? Let's adjust the exposure. Okay, that was fairly radical, but it's good. Okay, so what do we have? Right, priorities. Yeah, I suppose that if we have like large trees of objects that we need to update and that we have some contracts to do them every frame, then there's some that we're going to have to drop. So priority will go with that. Playback rate. Start position relative to the parent in nanoseconds. Wow, that's very cool. So everything is not relative to a root. Things are relative to their parent. I like that, actually. That's nice. It's more refactorable, right? Because yeah, you can move a whole subtree somewhere else and still have it be synchronized properly. And let's see, stop property. Expandable indicates whether this object should expand to the full duration of its container general composition. Before value is false. Okay, that sounds similar to default, but because that will also modify start stop to fit the whole duration of the composition. But I guess it's not about priorities there. So you can have something that is expandable, but has a very low priority, whereas this actually, I think, has high priority. It's not very clear actually whether -1 is actually high or not. Okay. All right, I think I've got some good handle now on what genome is. So let's look at GES. Architecture, timeline, and timeline pipeline. The most top-level object encapsulating every other object is the GST timeline. It's a central object for any editing project. GST timeline is a GST element, and therefore be used in any GStreamer pipeline like any other object. You gotta love that. That's, yeah, I really love that. I mean, you know, coming from a strongly typed functional programming standpoint, you'd be like, yeah, but this is like dynamic programming. But in fact, actually, GST elements negotiate their type interface in some sense dynamically. So it's not strongly typed, but it's also not completely the bad side of dynamic, I don't think. Tracks and layers. A GST timeline can contain two types of objects in layers and tracks. Layers corresponds to the user-visible arrangement of clips and what you primarily interact with as an application developer. A minimalistic timeline will only have one layer, but a more complex editing application could use as many as needed. So I suppose in an NLE, those would be horizontal layers laid one below the other, such that one would be a video layer, and maybe then you have the audio layers, and then you could have several video layers and transition between them. So yeah, user visible arrangement of clips. Makes sense, okay? And tracks correspond to the output streams in GStreamer. A typical GST timeline aimed at video editing application will have an audio track and a video track. A GST timeline for an audio editing application will only require an audio track. Multiple layers can be related to each track. So okay. In order to reduce even more the amount of GStreamer interaction the application developer has to deal with, a convenience GST pipeline has been made available specifically for timeline. GES pipeline. Oh, so one that's already kind of done. Let's check it out. A GES pipeline can take an audio-video GES timeline. A GES pipeline can take an audio-video GES timeline and conveniently link its GES tracks to an internal placing element for preview playback. Yeah, an internal placing element is just a way to take any, if you have a source and you pipe it to PlaySync, then it will take whatever player it's able to master. It will kind of try and find it. Can I play in this way using the GPU? Can I open a video buffer in this way? Can I put it in a window? It will try a few things on your system and just try and play it. Okay. And an internal encoding element. So internal encoding element is basically pretty much the same thing as I was describing. It's just going to try different encodings. Like, okay, can I decode this? Can I encode it in this way for the player and just negotiate something that works? I can switch between these modes using GES pipeline setback. Okay, right. So there's, yeah, placing. So it has both. Placing for preview and encode bin if you wanted to record or stream. Can switch between these modes using GES pipeline set mode. Also, or you can't do both. I'm looking at my video and I'm wondering, hey, maybe it'll be fun to actually show this webcam view, which now looks quite a lot better now than it did before because this is the webcam from this laptop and it can't have its exposure modified. So it means that the exposure is always always adjusting to the external light. So when it's really bright outside, then it screws things up. Okay, let's transform this. Actually, I can probably just transform it manually. I kind of fancy that. I think that's funny. Then, okay. I'm I'm going to center my keyboard a bit because I see that it gives me feedback with my posture actually. I'm going to put to prevent liquid from being spilled again. Success. And then, all right. Let's see. Let me check on the stream real quick. Yeah, I'm still live. Okay, good. So, GST pipeline set mode. Select the mode of the pipeline. Note that the pipeline will be set to GST state null. During this call to perform the necessary change, you will need to set the state again. You also have to call this. Okay. Rendering setting needs to be set before setting mode to GST pipeline mode render or GST pipeline mode smart render. The call to this model will fail otherwise. Okay, and so the mode is GST pipeline flag, and GST pipeline flag is preview audio, preview video, preview, output both the timeline with the video to the sound card and screen. Mode render, render the timeline with force decoding, the underlying encode bin, let's avoid re-encoding property set to false. Oh, it's struggling with this. I suppose CPU is only 29% on a laptop. It's pretty good for NDI decoding plus NDI streaming plus 2 webcams connected and second screen. Really, I'm impressed. Unfortunately, it seems like you can't do both, and I'm a bit surprised, but I think that's just a limitation of GES pipeline, which is just a convenience. The convenience GST pipeline has been made available specifically for timelines. So I suppose it means that we should be able to build a pipeline ourselves by using GES timeline, but it depends. I'd like to look at the code for GES pipeline to see how complicated it is, because that will determine whether it's actually possible. I mean, we might try just with GS pipeline, but the reason why I'm thinking that is that this means that we can't both preview and record here, at least with this pipeline. I mean, the truth is we can just probably just we can just probably just render actually, or render or smart render, and I look at the difference, and then T that to, since this is going to be a GST element, right? Let's double check that that's the case, that the GES pipeline is a GST element. It is. Everything's a GST element. That's lovely. So yeah, so we could use the render thing, I think, for considering that the timeline is basically like a source, and then do regular pipeline things and split the signal to different places from that. So not a worry. And so let's look at the difference between render and smart render here. The underlying encoding, render timeline with force decoding. Let's see. Render timeline avoiding decoding, re-encoding. I see. Avoid re-encoding, just in case the timelines, video tracks, for instance, or audio tracks are already in the right format, and we don't need to do much. Although I suppose that, this depends also if you need to do some containerization of like audio and video tracks and things like that. Okay. I think I have GStreamer installed on this machine, but I'm not sure. But anyway, we're just going to read docs today. Just going to read a little bit more, and then I'll break off. So I do want to see whether I want to read more about GS pipeline. I want to look at the code of GS pipeline. And then I want to finish by looking at what it would look like to interface with Haskell. Yeah. So let's look at what the definition, what the rest of the documentation homepage has for us. Initialization. Let's take a look at that, because this might be for GES timeline directly and not for GES pipeline. So yeah, I think if we look at those 4 pages, we'll get a good sense. GES needs to be initialized after GStreamer itself. Okay. So the fact that this has dedicated C functions to interface, as opposed to sort of more regular GST elements. GST elements usually have like an abstraction to manipulate them, like pads will allow you to set properties, and you have signals in order to receive and send events. So they have an abstracted interface, but it looks like we're not going to be able to use Haskell's existing GStreamer infrastructure, which can talk to any GST element, because these functions are well, actually, it might not be true if we use the GES pipeline, because the GES pipeline might be exactly what we want for that. No, it seems like maybe most of its stuff is also low-level settings. So, but that would be probably one of the first things that we want to try. Okay. We want to try to instantiate a GES pipeline in Haskell, like the simplest possible one. That will tell us whether we have what we need, whether we can use the... Yeah, see, properties, this we can all set, I think, with Haskell without any issue. But what worries me are these other calls. So we will see. But no, it looks like properties has most of the stuff. You can say audio filter, audio sync, the one that is for preview. Okay. We can set mode through that. The timeline used by this pipeline. This content it will play and render. Aha. So we need to pass it to timeline. Okay. So we need to instantiate timeline, whatever we do. So I think we won't be able to avoid having to do some kind of FFI in Haskell, which I suppose should be okay, because we'll take a look in a second. But I suppose that the GStreamer modules in Haskell will already have a lot of that facility, so we can either extend that or create a new module. It's something that I'm not familiar with and that I'm interested in digging into. So. Yeah, and so let's see, GS version. So all of that stuff doesn't have properties per se. They are functions. And so all of these functions simply need to be called to initialize. I think we can't avoid having to do that, and also waiting for the callback when initialization has been done. I mean, there's not a callback, it's actually check maybe some other way. I don't know if there's a way to have signals for this, but okay, let's look at GES timeline. Central object, like the timeline. Timeline is composed of a set of GES tracks and set of GES layers, which are added to the timeline using GES add track and GES timeline append layer, respectively. Contain tracks, define the supported type of the timeline, and provide the media output. Essentially, each track provides an additional source GST pad. Yeah, makes total sense. Most usage of the timeline makes total sense, meaning that you set the timeline and you say this timeline is going to have 2 video tracks and 1 audio track, and then it creates automatically pads on which you can connect 2 video tracks and 1 audio track. So easy. Okay, most users of a timeline will likely only need a single GES audio track and or a single GES video track. Might not our case, but you can create such a timeline with GES timeline new audio video. After this, you're unlikely to need to work with the tracks directly. Okay, all good. A timelines layer contains GES clips, which in turn control the creation of GES track elements, which are added to the timeline tracks. Track element, that's a new concept. Clips we've heard about, and that like a layer contains clips, but clips control the creation of a GES track element, which are added to the timeline's track. See select tracks for objects if you wish to have more control over which track a clips element are added to. I see. Right, so this is the routing between this defines the mapping between what in a clip is mapped to a track. But the tracks are both input and output. In the diagram, it looked like they were outputs. But what they were saying about the pads, I suppose, maybe I misread it. Maybe I thought they were input pad, but they are output pads, maybe. Supported type of the timeline provides media outputs. Yeah, each track provides additional source GST pad. I see. Yeah, it's a source for somebody else. So it is an output, right? So the clips are going to source their content in some other way, and then they're going to map it to the tracks. And I suppose that that's with the GST track element. Let's look what the GST track element is like. GST track element. Pops. Don't want to read that. Let's stay at the higher level. I will take a look at select track for object. If you wish to have more control over which clips element are added to. So I don't know what object means in this setting. Oh, how's my connectivity there? It's fine. Yeah, this website says a little bit strange. Select track for object. This will be emitted. Oh, it's an event. Whenever the timeline needs to determine which tracks Eclipse children should be added to. The track element will be added to each of the tracks given in the return. If a track element is selected to go into multiple tracks, it will be copied into the additional track under the same clip. Note that the copy will not keep its properties or state in sync with the original. Okay. I think this hints at the structure of a GES clip. A GES clip has children, and it's... Yeah, no, I'm not sure what the structure is. Let's continue reading at the top level there. It's not clear what a clip is from here. Or maybe I should just look at the GES clip documentation. GES clip. GES clips are the core object of a GES layer. Each clip may exist in a single layer, but may control several GES track elements that span several GES tracks. What happened? Why did you move? Okay, so clips control GES track elements. And track elements span, yeah, and a track element I think is assigned to a track, to a GES track, but the clip can be assigned to GES tracks that are to GES track elements. So basically a clip can control, for instance, a video segment and an audio segment. That's what this means. It's a logical grouping for some stuff. But a track element, I suppose, then must be something that's compatible to be played on into a particular track. GES track element, the GST timeline element that specifically belongs to a single GES track, yes, or this timeline. Start and duration specifies temporal extent of the track. Yeah. And specifically a track element grabs some NLE object, such an NLE resource and NLE operation, which can be retrieved with GES track element get NLE object, and start duration and endpoint. These sound a lot like the nonlinear folks. The GST non-len thing that we were looking at. NLE source, I think that must be a renaming of gnonlen GNL source. Pretty sure of this. Yeah, NLE object has the commit thing, has active duration, endpoint. Yeah, that's exactly the API for GNL. Okay, so it's just been renamed NLE. Okay. I don't dislike that. I use NLE in my documentation myself. It's right here, in fact. Okay, so, right. So a track element wraps some NLE object. Okay, so that's where the our sort of the elements that are kind of transformations of source material, like the NLE source and the operations on top, like the filters and the timing. All of this I didn't realize, but now I do. It's supposed to be a single format. So you have one of those for video, one of those for audio. And a GST track element will have a beginning and an end for such a thing. So I think that that's actually a composition. A GST track element, that sounds to me like that's a GES composition, GNL composition. It has operation and sources. And maybe they modified the, no, they haven't. Hold on. I think this is the same thing. I think we don't have the GNL stuff here anymore, but yeah, composition, GNL composition, updated commit. The GNL composition contains GNL objects such as GNL sources and GNL operations. So maybe they just, I think they've made this single track. So now a GES track is for a single track, and they do the composition elsewhere, the composition of tracks. That makes a lot of sense to me, somehow. Meaning that instead of, like, that's a cleaner interface to think that your timeline outputs different tracks, rather and that each track will then contain track-specific transforms, as opposed to a composition, which is a non-track specific. It could be a mix of audio and video, and then how do you track what audio and video it has? So the timeline thing actually constrains it more and makes it simpler to understand. I get it. And we were reading track element, yeah. To be retrieved, start duration, important priority, and active. And when a track element is added to a track, its NLE object is added to the corresponding NLE composition that the track wraps. Hey, so that's where we retrieve the composition thing, but now it's a single track level composition which only contains things of the same type, which is a different way to slice and dice, but it makes complete sense to me. And that is exactly GNL composition. Okay. Most users will not have to work directly with track elements, since the GS clip will automatically create track elements for its timelines track and takes responsibility for updates to them. Oh, that's fancy. I like that. So if we have, say, if a timeline has plenty of tracks, then GS clips will automatically be provisioned with them. Okay. The only track elements that are not automatically created by clips that the user is likely to want to create are GS effects. GS effects support effects with n sync paths and one single source path. Apart from GES audio mixer and GES compositor, it can be used as effect, and where sync paths can be requested as needed based on the timeline topology. GES We always request at most one sync path per fragment. Why? Okay, so I think these are two sentences that I merged together. GS Audio Mixer and GS Compositor have, I think, multiple sync paths, which makes sense and is great, and we're going to want that. And I'm going to just think a bit about how we want things to be arranged here, but it makes a lot of sense. And GES always add converters for audio effects and video converters for video effects to make it simpler for end users. I see. Interesting. I mean, end users for them are obviously pretty low-level developers. I don't really have properly fleshed out personas, but okay. So yeah, GES effects don't create track elements automatically. Or no. Clips don't create GSE effects automatically, but GSE effects are track elements. Hold on, let me double check that. GSE effects are track elements. So as track elements, they are NLE compositions, not GES composition. NLE compositions, the NLE objects, which have sources and filters. And I guess the sources are the other track elements probably. I don't know how GES effects are laid out, but we shall see. But it makes a lot of sense. Control binding for children properties. You can set up control bindings for track element child properties using GES track element set control source. Oh, that's nice. I think this is for keyframing and control bindings, meaning like surfacing some properties like an operation, like a filters property, or even scaling transform properties, and surfacing them. A GST time value control source specify the time values using the internal source coordinates. Oh, right. It will be updated to lie between the in-point and output of the elements. Right. It can be switched out by setting auto-clamp control sources to false. Oh, right. I see. So if you have some curve and a clip, then it will automatically clamp out the curve that don't fit the clip. Whereas if you don't auto clamp, then you have a chance for whatever parameter. I mean, I guess I'm thinking maybe my first thought was that maybe it would help to prevent like glitch effects when a property has to suddenly shift, but I don't know. Maybe it will work. Okay, so it has pretty much all the things. It is what's it? Core children. In more detail, clips will usually have some core GES track element children, which are created by the clip when it is added to a layer in a timeline. Yes. The type and form of those core children will depend on the clip's subclass. You can use GST track element as core to determine whether a track element is considered such a core track element. Note, if a core track element is part of a clip, it will always be treated as a core child of the clip. You can connect to the child added signal to be notified of the creation. When a child is added to a clip, I love that there's all of these signals. I mean, for collaborative stuff, it's going to be really interesting. When a child is added to a clip, the timeline will select its tracks using select tracks for objects. Note that it may be the case that the child will still have no set track after this process. For example, the timeline does not have a track of the corresponding track type. The clip can safely contain the children, which may have their track set later, although they will play no functional role in the timeline in the meantime. Awesome. When a child is added to a clip, the timeline will select its tracks using select tracks for objects. Yeah, we heard that before. Yeah, okay, I did read this. If a clip may create track elements with various track types, such as a GES URL clip, but you only wanted to create a subset of these types, you should set the supported format of the clip to the subset of types. Should be done before adding to the clip overlay, like so to mute a audio-video thing that you want to import. If a clip will produce several core elements, so I wonder, now reading all of this, I wonder whether live sources will be well dealt with. So that's another thing to check. Instantiate GS pipeline. Instantiate a GES timeline with a live clip, a live GES clip. Theory, I don't see anything preventing that, except that what timeline playing will mean is a little bit more tricky to think about, which, you know, I will need to wrap my head around because I'm thinking this live / producing terms. But this will be way sufficient to do some of the stuff that we wanted to do with, you know, appending intros and outros and all that stuff. Some effects also change the timing of the data. Yes. Note that the GS base effect clip will refuse time effect, but the GS source will allow them. I think this is good news. This probably means that we can do whatever we want with the GS source. When added to a clip, time effects may adjust the timing of other children in the same track. Oh, right. But I haven't looked at what effects, how effects work with clips. But you know what? I think I will leave it here. We'll go back to this documentation when we start again next week. I did want to say that this PureScript Twitch overlay thing, that this will be moved to the PureScript stream basically, and I think we're going to get there. I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be Twitch overlay, but I think the overlay in the sense of the streamer overlay, this is also going to move to the PureScript stream. And this, the separating source and stream recording, I think this is, I mean, the selective recording, I think this is all GStreamer. I think it doesn't need GES timeline for that. So this will go to the Haskell stream. Sending separate video stream, I think so too. That will also go to the Haskell stream. Same for this. It's basically Haskell GStreamer, I think, is what we were saying. Or I did want to look at the Haskell GStreamer documentation. So that's definitely something that we do next time. And so let's say work breakdown structure. And Haskell GStreamer docs is what I want to read about. And here say you want to read about effects. Okay, and what else? Right, scripting GStreamer. So we kind of saying we're maybe even bypassing this, although maybe there is a case to be made that we want to do some kind of prototype pipeline for that. But we don't even need to script it. I think it just means using some of the GStreamer tooling that's delivered with it. And Gilondin, where we'll definitely be doing this. And the video processing, machine learning thing, that will also be part of the Haskell GStreamer stream. So I think it's basically it's this stuff. You know, this diagram that I've been thinking about of building an interface where you have time segments and different tracks and something that would be able to do both live, both audio and video, as well as somehow then fit the kind of the timeline paradigm as well. So that's it for me. I'm going to replug the camera that has decided to also again disconnect, just so that I can sign off properly. There we go. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I am Jun Chan, and we've been playing with streaming tools and with this new video streaming setup. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next Tuesday for PureScript stuff. And I don't have a scene to say bye-bye. So I think I can actually master that some way by taking this by scene and let's see, making it a an output projector. Okay. Yeah. And saying full screen display 2. Wow, didn't quite work. Okay, this is a little bit manual, but here. I didn't even set, oh, that would totally be in space if I had my green screen right now. Okay, I'm totally going to do that because it's actually surprisingly easy to set this green screen. So I will absolutely show it off. And actually, I will also show it off with this view because that's the view that's the best to see this. And let's do it. Green screen. Not bad, right? And check this out. Poof! And that means yeah, I am in space. That's funny. Actually, I'm also in space. Hold on. I'm also in space in this view. Okay. Yeah, I'm also in space in this view, but without the background, I suppose. I think I can change that, right? Oh yeah, but well, that's the view. That's the view. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. That's the other view. That's the other. Yes, that's the view where I'm just a talking head, a bit like most streamers do, right? But I haven't seen a view like this so much, right? And I kind of like it. This is space. Like I can actually, I can move around and I can point to things. Like, look, this particle moving through. Like, oh, like this one. All right. See you next week.